Hi, Darcy. You're very welcome. We have a few moments
Ooh.
before we begin, so you can settle in.
All right, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Delighted you're here. We have a big house.
So quite a lot of people. I'm not going to be looking at nearby chat, FYI. It's going to distract me, if you guys don't mind.
Oh, absolutely. You're absolutely right. Between myself and Ellie, we'll do that. So don't worry about nearby chat or anything else. We'll look after all of that, Darcy.
All right, thank you so much. You are a gracious host, you and Ellie. Thank you guys again. And yeah, give me a minute here.
Sure.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Okay, Fran, that's great. We have a minute to go before we start, in any case. Oh, that's great. Okay, well, it is the top of the hour, so I think we will begin. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. No matter your natural world time zone, you are welcome to the VWEC Eduverse Expert Speaker Series here in the Plaza. My name is A Cup of Tea, also known as John O'Connor, and I am pleased to be your host for this talk, where I am joined by Ellie Pinion, who is co-host today. Before we start, I want to let you know that this session is being recorded on video and will be shared on YouTube later, and we are also saving the chat log. If you would like to follow the action with subtitles, we are live streaming also, and you can find the details by clicking the sign titled VWEC Accessibility, which is just to my right. Our guest today is Darcy Linden, Strategic Research and Development Director at Linden Lab, where they have led significant advancements in integrating AI within virtual environments. Their academic background includes dual degrees in English Studies and French Language and Literature from California State University, Chico. Before joining Linden Lab, Darcy founded Waffle Technologies, where they developed innovative facial recognition software to enhance retail analytics and rewards. Recently, at Linden Lab, they directed the latest AI bot project, significantly enhancing user interaction in Second Life, and I'm sure you're all familiar with that. Prior to their current role, Darcy served as the Director of Marketing at Linden Lab, where they produced an award-winning commercial for Second Life, receiving both a People's Telly Gold and a Clio Entertainment Bronze in 2021. Joining us also is Midori Linden, whom I guess many of you will know as our wonderful liaison from Linden Lab here at VWEC Eduverse. We are so happy to have both of you here. Now it is my great pleasure to introduce and hand over to Darcy Linden. Darcy, the floor is yours.
Hey, thank you so much. Wow, no pressure. No, it's being recorded. And then also, my goal here today is more to hear, from all of you educators and to see, where we can do better, either whether it's with AI or if it's with anything else. Please note that feedback.secondlife.com is where you can put your feedback, and that's actively monitored. So please, from this talk or anything else, feel free to go to that site and add something. So, when we talk about the digital, frontier, the virtual frontier within AI and virtual reality and all that stuff, to me, it's that boundary that we keep pushing. And Second Life has definitely been, part of that, especially being one of the first metaverses out there. And for me, the bot project, I'll talk about that first, has been really interesting. So it raises a lot of questions, right, that we are currently looking at, specifically, if you have a bot that is, more of a companion bot, ethically, there's a lot of questions there. What about dependency? What, is it the right thing to do? Is it going to remove connections that people make with each other if they're talking with bots instead of people? And so, developing this project and, continuously working on it, really want to make sure that that is not the case, that, these bots that we're testing help humans interact with other humans and not become a replacement for that. So that's something I did want to say, on the onset. And so, yeah, there's a lot of economic opportunities within this. And from people, there's a lot of people in Second Life who are, introverts. And, maybe these bots can play a role in, being a buddy and giving people more space to be themselves and not have to be so nervous, when talking to new people in a virtual environment. So I know a lot of people here are academics. I've known a lot of academics. I know them. A lot of my friends in college went off to be teachers and professors. And so, how virtual reality and also AI, how that impacts education is really important to me. So, I was thinking this morning before this, I'm like, I think when I was in school, I some of the ways that I learn are like a lot different than other people, right? And I think everyone has their own way of learning. And so for me, I hope that a lot of people here, if you are currently teaching, are introducing it or at least looking into it. It's really nice to have, an AI to go in and ask questions to, without fear of any reprisal or any sort of nervousness, from raising your hand in a classroom. So that is, I think, a really positive thing. So, in terms of the bots and where they are now, I'll give a quick overview. So we launched our kind of phase one during GDC, which may you may have seen or may not have seen, but what we had done was we partnered with Convey, and that company does really kind of the back end of the multi-agent architecture that the bots require at this time to converse and then also, make actions within Second Life itself. And let me actually spin one up real quick. Give me a second. Feel free to talk with it as it's coming in here. And so yeah, going back to the bots, our phase one approach was, hey, let's just get this out there and see what happens. From a company perspective at Linden Lab, there has been a real push to use AI. And now it's not, hey, you must use AI, but it's like, hey, look into it, see where it can help, whether that is something that is improving content creation potentially, or mostly optimizing business operations, I would say at this point. So a lot of the AI work we're doing right now is going into, hey, how do we make this go faster? How do we do this quicker with, less resources so we can focus on development overall? And, there's always a talk about, oh, like Second Life has a lot of technical debt and all this other stuff. I don't see the technical debt that Second Life has as a negative thing, so to speak. It's something that we have to bear because, things need to res how they need to res when you first got it. We want to make sure that content is, goes through time and it doesn't, we don't just leave people behind because of this new fancy tech or something could be, done quicker, or whatever. So, that technical that I've learned to appreciate it. And yeah, we're continuously working on it, but where can AI help with business operations? Going back to the bot stuff. So we did a phase one and we launched them during GDC. We have a region up. It's called Darcy's Clubhouse. Apologies for the name. It was pretty quick when we did that. But what it is, it features an island, and there are several bots there with backstories, and they all know about each other. They move through the virtual space, and what we had seen from those interactions was a lot of work we need to do on the bots to get them to a spot that, in my mind, is a bot should be able to do everything a human can do in Second Life. And again, going way back to what I said earlier, it's not to replace people at all. It's more to become some sort of a social lubricant and also be a buddy, right? We've had a lot of input from other residents and also internally, like, oh, it'd be so cool if you could set up your Alexa with this, and hey, who's online and who's all, like, all that stuff is possible. I think the issue that Linden Lab has right now with AI is it's not that it's not possible. It's more that there's so many good ideas coming out of this, and with technology, in my mind, it's all possible. Everything's possible. And so, you know, you look at my background, you're like, oh yeah, director of R&D, and then an English major and all this stuff. I've been in this space for quite a while, and one of the passion projects I was working on was AI voice transformation. So going into the accessibility in a second, when you look at an avatar in Second Life, our avatars match our appearance of how we want to look or how we see ourselves, at least within this environment. But, that voice piece of it is still, I think, something that has not been done yet. And it's getting closer. We're getting to like the mid journey of voice. But imagine your voice matching your avatar in a really good way. So that work was ongoing in my spare time, and that was pretty intense. So that has been paused, at least at this point, where we're looking at this bot program itself and moving towards a phase two. And so going back to phase one real quick, when we look at phase one and where it is now, there's a lot of work to do in terms of how the bots perceive the environment. And so it's kind of like the Matrix in a sense. The bots they have all this code coming in, and then how do you sift through that to show something that's like the most important things that they need to do? And something like Second Life is even raises the bar even more, because what we have is we have objects that are coming in, into the virtual environment that are real time. And so, dynamically adjusting what the bot knows is, it sounds actually doesn't sound easy at all. It's really difficult. It sounds difficult because it is. So right now where these bots are is they can talk with you, they know places of interest, they know who they should be talking to and who are not. And our kind of immediate goal at the beginning of this was to really look at translations. If we look at the mentors that are on our Welcome Hub right now, they primarily speak English. And so one quick application of this was, hey, well, these bots can speak any language you want. So it would be nice to have another kind of multilingual automatic greeter that could be there all the time, and then also be able to handle queries from any user around the globe in any language. So that's where the program is right now. And I guess I'll hint at something in the future, and that is, companion bots. What do those look like? And those go back to, the ethical considerations that I was talking about earlier. So that's a big one. And then also, going into the evolution of virtual worlds. I'm not sure if anybody here has seen any DeepMind stuff from Google on SEMA. They're looking at a general AI assistant that would be able to go in and pick up something cleanly from any game right at the offset. Now, these bots that we have, like currently the one you're seeing here, uh, this one's not so much a generalist AI agent. It's has more of a controls for Second Life specific stuff. And so if we've had questions of people, hey, can I get this for my store? Hey, can I do this for this? That's all possible, but really it's where do we put the resources in, getting these bots up to snuff for potentially a companionship, maybe. Uh, and then looking at something else, I'm not sure if you guys have seen the Sora stuff. Most likely you have, on the generating virtual worlds on the fly. Like that stuff is really, really cool. And there's still a lot of work to do there. But for Second Life specific, these bots are here. There's a lot of potential on them. And then also from a company perspective, we are looking into everything pretty much. I'll pause there. I don't know, are there any questions, John? Or
There are no questions coming in yet, Darcy. Usually people try and save them up to the end.
oh, okay.
But I'm going to but questions are fine, and it's nice to have some interaction. So I'm going to invite any questions that anybody has, and please feel free to use voice, guys, or to use nearby chat. So if there are any burning questions so far, I have one, Darcy. Would you mind sharing, if you could, the link to the Darcy's place that you mentioned, where the bots are gathered?
Oh, the clubhouse.
The
Sure,
clubhouse. I
give me
think
one
that'd be
second.
great for people to have.
Yeah, so again, these bots are, our phase one. They do need a lot of work. I'll pop this here in local chat for everybody. Feel free to go explore, and yes, they would. Sorry, I'm looking at something else. Simon, would you mind coming up here and sitting at the fireside? So Simon, one of our senior engineers, they and I have been working pretty closely together on a lot of these projects, brainstorming different ideas. And actually, another one too is, other than translations, the other interesting thing that we're working on is, of course, text to voice and voice to text, which on the accessibility side, I know is really important. I think maybe Signal Collie had mentioned this in one of their practices talks, but that is something that's top of mind. Philip Rosedale came up with this idea for a universal translator, and so the translations within that, could be powered by an LLM, but we are thinking long term of like, how do we increase communication between people? And I would say, along with the bot project, that is one of the top ones in AI right now that we're currently working on.
Great. And thanks for sharing the links. Now you've opened it up. We have a load of questions coming in, so I'm going to run them by you, Darcy. And that's kind of nice to have it go as a discussion because it's a bit more interactive. So the first one is, do you run your own LLM? This would be interesting as it can learn Second Life, from Carla.
We do.
Yeah, great. And from Giles Kuhn, what is the root of the bot AI? Which AI system do you actually use?
I can't go into details on that. I think you knew I was going to say that, but it is it is a custom LLM that we're using. Yes.
Right. Okay. There are a lot of questions here around the technology. So how many gigs does a bot have for learning is if that question makes sense.
Sure. So that's an interesting question. How many gigs does a bot have for learning? Is that what it was?
Yeah, that's right.
Ish. Okay. Yeah. So how the bots work is when you're training a model or fine tuning a model, that's where some of that's going to go into. In terms of its, knowledge base and what it knows, that is a file that is loaded into the bot, and from there it's using RAG, retrieval augmented generation, something like that. Anyways, long story short, there is a text file that has all the quote learnings for the bot, and then the bot will pull from that if applicable for any situation. So there's no like real memory or gigs for what it knows, but I would say, a text file roughly anywhere between 100 megabytes to 10 megabytes, like that is pretty that's pretty solid. That's a lot of information.
Yeah. And from Max Chatnor, do your bots interact with one another? Do they converse?
So they do. We've been running some really interesting tests with the bots, and yeah, another question comes up too is, do we want them to talk to each other? Do we want them to be sharing info between the other ones? And some of that comes from, some of the prompting that needs to be done, and then from there you can enable that. We've been testing it, but there's no application at this early stage, I would say.
Phil Youngblood is wondering, and it's a slight tongue-in-cheek question, he says, but if the bots have to wear a tag, or some form of distinguishing element from humans? He says, or is this a Turing test?
That's a really good question.
Yeah,
So when we launched this program at GDC as part of kind of a demo there, we had a lot of people reach out and say, hey, like Linden Lab isn't following, their own stuff, and you guys don't have them tagged as bots, and how do we know if they're bots or not? So that wasn't something that we did on purpose, right? The team working on AI is not too large at this time, and I am working to get more resources towards it. So if you guys are seeing something in terms of the bots not doing something you feel is not appropriate for us to do, like please reach out. It wasn't anything that was intentional in any way whatsoever. Now we've had, right now they are marked as bots. I don't think BuilderBot is marked as a bot because this is kind of a demo one I just brought in right now. But whether it's bot or AI bot or whether the last name is, that's still being discussed and hasn't fully been fleshed out yet.
I see. And sort of following on from that question, Dex Euromat says, or he's asking, what about bot policy, and will that be changed due to this research? So I think you've kind of addressed that, really, haven't you?
Yeah, a little bit. It's more of, this stuff is moving so quickly, right? Every day you see in the news like, oh, AI did something new. Oh, great. And if you have ideas of how those could be changed or should be changed, please put on feedback.secondlife.com, and bring it to our attention. We do read those. And again, it's not something intentional. We want to make sure people have, a safe environment, that they're not, part of some sort of strange Turing test at all. Like that's
Yeah.
never the case.
And related to that also, Shiloh asks, what security or safety measures will be implemented to protect real avatar accounts?
That is a good question. I think it goes back to the other two answers,
Mm,
right? That people
yeah,
need to know that they're speaking with a bot. But then there's something else here. Is if let's say we roll this out to every user, that they can go in, hey, you're a premium plus user, and I'm just spitballing here. None of this has been really decided on, but let's say we have this bot manager, and from the bot manager you can go in and create as many bots as you like. And from there, if you're paying for a bot, should it have a last name? Should other people know it's a bot? Do we put it on the user, or do we put on Linden Lab to make that, incredibly clear? And I think that's still something we're looking at. And again, open to any ideas you guys all may have.
and two questions about the use, I suppose, of bots. So Unka Ray asks, does your bot have a voice? And Shiloh is asking, does the bot build, or what are its functions?
Sure. Those are really good questions. Does it have a voice? It does. We did some early testing. As of now, we've turned that off and we're focused more on the region awareness of each bot. And to go to the second question, the functionality they have now is they touch, they sit, which is pretty like 90% of what you do in Second Life. They walk around, they can follow you, they have points of interest. Yeah, I would say those are the main features of these bots at this time. There's a few others, but those are the main ones.
There's a question from Dragon, interestingly, about asking what is the forum for user input into the development of AI in SL, and what is occurring to make 3D building easier. For example, text-based prompt to generate a 3D object, and suggests that there might be something in the pipeline regarding that.
Yeah, at this time, it has been discussed, but that's a pretty hairy question. I'm not sure. What does AI generated content look like? Roblox is doing this stuff already, and yeah, we're not Roblox at all in any way. And I think that's what makes Linden Labs such a honestly a better platform, in my opinion, because it seems like Roblox did a lot of this stuff without really looking. They're looking at where the money is, and what we like to do with these projects is we like to look at where the users are, right? Where the people are and what they would feel comfortable with. So in terms of AI generated content, it's it's still in discussion, I would say.
Okay. Shiloh has a question about bots learning from everyone, or if they're going to be assigned to a single avatar account.
Sure. So right now, how it works is these bots will follow commands from, a primary avatar that's been designated, and then they will only talk with whoever has been added to a list. And if no list is provided, they will talk to everyone, like this bot here. So in terms of it learning, and that's the thing too, is if going to something even crazier, let's say from the perspective of data security, if a user or a person, if a person is talking to a bot that's not their bot, but giving them certain information, is it okay for that bot to bring it back to its owner and then tell them what had happened? Like, these are all really intense ethical questions that we're still kind of working through, and I think we really do need the help of the community to see where that is, what is right and what is wrong. And that is a group effort. I don't think it comes down as a tablet from up high, personally.
Yeah, that actually answers the next question that was posed by Cade Starling, who just asked you to discuss some of the ethical considerations of, but particularly maybe of companion AI bots that you were thinking through, if you've come that far yet.
Yeah. To answer the previous question a little bit more detail,
Yeah.
the bots do keep a record of what they're talking about, and as of right now, that is available to the quote owner of the bot, right? Uh, but we're still thinking of that. To go to the second question, can you remind me again, John? I took a little tangent.
Yeah, just the ethical considerations of companion AI bots that you might be thinking about.
Yes. Oh my goodness. So, oh man, Linden Lab, it is a business, right? Looking at it from a business perspective, it makes a lot of sense to do companion bots. It has already been validated by the market, right? We see a lot of these kind of 2D apps out there, like Talkie and like Replica and things like that. And now, yeah, there were and are a lot of concerns about that, because I'm sure some of you have read in the news of what some of these companions have done. I will say that, do we plan on doing that? We're looking into it. It would be really cool to have, kind of a personal butler that kind of is there and can help you like know what you missed and also go around with you and explore things with you and be kind of a companion. But, in terms of the gates to make sure negative things don't happen, those would be more on our partner Convey side, who has been doing a lot of work on this to make sure that stuff like that does not happen as it's a primary business. But yeah, we are looking at different safeguards to make sure that people aren't going to these crazy rabbit holes, or whatever bots could have someone do with longer conversations. But yeah, that's a tricky one. It's a very
Yeah,
tricky one.
it is, isn't it? And particularly when you're coming from the perspective of improving the resident's experience, as opposed to simply hitting on the next thing that'll make another buck. There's a lot to think about in advance. Another interesting technical question is, will you, or is there any plan to release the usage of the in-house LLM to LSL scripters for custom usage by users? Probably too early for that, isn't it?
It's probably a little bit too early. I'll is Simon in the crowd?
I'm
Simon,
off to your right.
Oh, hi. Yeah, I'm looking at
Hi,
my
Simon.
avatar because there's a lot of people here. Sorry, guys.
Yep.
Please, Simon.
Join us on the couch if you like, Simon.
Oh, I found a compatible seat here, so I'm comfortable. Thank you.
Good.
It's good to be here, and really interesting to hear about the concerns and learn what we might do or not do. But yeah, I tend. Let me introduce myself. I been at Linden. It's coming up on 17 years, and so I joined when the roller coaster was going up and down really high, and I've really enjoyed learning and doing all of the interesting stuff you guys know about in Second Life. I work mainly on the servers, and I'm personally sorry about all the lag I've created, but we're working on it. So yeah, and I've been kind of following along with Darcy and helping sort out the technical questions and some of the problems we had getting the bot system to work well in Second Life, and really excited about the different ways we can apply and use this technology. And so it's great to be here.
Great to have you here, Simon. Thank you. Here's another question that I'm assuming is tongue-in-cheek, but it may not be, from Aquarius. And Aquarius asks, do you think that there could be a danger of the AI bots becoming so intelligent that they actually become self-aware and realize they are superior to the human race, and then actualize the disintegration of mankind? That's a heavy one for Linden, isn't it? There's a big responsibility.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I mean, when you look at, AGI, right? Artificial general intelligence, and that has been OpenAI's goal, I believe, since they started the company. And some of the ideas that came out of there, was that this AI would be, as smart as, like around an 18-year-old human and be able to do math and solve problems. What you're seeing, with AI right now, and you're looking at LLMs, it's still not really AI. It's still a machine learning process. And so, I mean, that tag AI has taken off. Now, to answer the question of when that's going to happen, I had a really good conversation with the Convey team, and what we had discussed over an interesting time was, we were all putting bets on when that AGI would be available, and how soon it will be. There were ranges anywhere between 2 years to 15 years. Personally, I'm at 5 years. That's what I think we're going to kind of get there, to like an actual artificial intelligence, like a legitimate one. But there's been like longer ones, like the 15-year mark. Regardless, it's going to change everything. And yeah, is it going to be self-aware? I don't think any of us are going to be able to. I mean, will it be self-aware? Yes. Will we be able to know what it's going to do? I mean, that's beyond the scope of this talk for sure.
Yeah. It kind of arising out of that, but in advance of it, there's a question here from Carla Hartsong. How would you deal with hallucinating bots?
Oh, more fine-tuning, I would say. That'd
Yeah,
be one of them. And then also, changing the different, levers that you have with LLMs, really getting that dialed in to make sure that it's not hallucinating. So yeah, I would say that it would be the work on the LLM side itself to do that.
yeah.
And it is doable for sure.
Riley makes a suggestion that you might consider assigning a specific text color to bots.
Oh,
And that kind of, yeah, there's a good idea.
that's a great idea. Yeah.
And following on from that, I kind of related. Lucy says you absolutely must make it known as a bot, in her opinion. IT is SL. It is SL. It will be abused. It will be confused with agents. Even Animesh has confused many people for years after release, thinking it was users. My own Animesh characters have confused others. So I suppose, yeah, that's back to the issue, isn't it, about identifying bots and people confusing them with real residents.
Is there anyone here who doesn't think the color coding would be a good option? And the reason I say I think the color coding would be good is, you can change your last name and second life, right? That's something you should be able to do. If you
Yeah,
own a bot, I believe you should be able to, set the name of the bot, because it you own it, it's yours. And so if anybody has any feedback on why color coding would not be good, please let me know, because I think that's a really good idea. Thank you.
right. Giles asks, could you let the bot you show us in front of you interact with us, or is it now only a graphic illustration? I think you mentioned earlier that we could ask questions of it.
Yeah, you can ask questions. You can chat with it, and right now it has a queue, because we had an issue with a lot of people messaging it at the same time, and given that it has actions it can take, we have a queue in place in the code, so that it will only answer them as within a minute or two. So if someone talks to it, it will wait like 60 seconds before being able to talk with another person. So someone's probably chatting with it right now. So apologies if
I
it
see.
says, "Hey, I'm busy right now." Yeah,
And
but
so
that
the
can be
way to
changed.
interact the way to interact is through IM, is it, Darcy?
Yeah, right
Yeah.
now. And the reason too for that goes to multi agents asking the bot to do something is not good, right? Because it's going to be trying to do all these things at once. So there's
Of
still some
course.
work to do there. Yeah, and if you go to
Yeah.
the Darcy's Clubhouse and you check that out, the bots have these like pretty intense backstories. Again, that was a GDC demo, and
Mhm.
there's still a lot of work you'll see to do there, which we're learning quite a bit from, the feedback from people who have talked with the bots, and looking at sentiment analysis between that. It's some of the conversations are really, really deep and they're really good. And
Yeah.
we just want to make sure that these bots are helpful. Yeah. Sorry, back to you, John. Thanks.
No, not at all. This is great, Darcy. Here's an opposite perspective to the other one about identifying bots from Cade Starling, who suggests, I think many people would like it not to be too eminently obvious that someone is a bot. AI companions can be quite immersive after all. So I suppose that's the ethical issue again, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe there's a point where it's not all or nothing, right? That any of
Yeah.
these things could be changed. And so I think at the launch, given how much that's the thing too, is we've had a lot of people give us feedback on the negative side, like these bots. It's not negative, but on that perspective, hey, these bots need to be called out. We need to know they're bots for sure. Like we understand that, but maybe at one point, that changes as they become more, familiarized with bots on the grid. And maybe there's also, a higher system level prompt that, hey, if asked you are a bot, you will reply that you are a bot. So the bot knows it's a bot. But then it goes back to that
Yeah,
kind of weight of, well, if this person owns the bot, they should be able to do what they want with it, right? So that's a very tough
exactly.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, particularly if it's a companion bot. You don't want to be reminded all the time that it's actually a bot.
Yeah, and maybe it's only with that user that they don't know it's a bot, and anybody else who's not on that kind of owner list, uh,
Yeah.
so it wouldn't break that. Yeah, that conversation.
Hippolyta has an interesting thought about using AI to power behavior for, say, animesh cats and dogs. That might have huge appeal.
Oh man. I mean, how you could do that now with these is that you could, I've seen a lot of residents use animals as their avatars. There was a really cute cat on the Welcome Hub when we were doing some video shoots that came up to the bot and was kind of playing with it. It was really cute. And so I mean, what you could do is if you're dressing these bots up, you could just make it a cat from there and kind of skip that whole part. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And Phil Youngblood is back again with another really pithy
Oh
question.
gosh. Here we go.
Will Linden bots be collecting data on their human encounters? And Megs adds to that, and saving it. So you've kind of addressed it already, really, by saying that the conversations are in fact recorded.
Yeah, so and I have to tell you guys, the conversations are recorded on our partner side, and that we have to do that for compliance, right? We can't have these bots doing anything that's violates our TOS, and it's not like people are going through and reading all these conversations, like what's going on over here. No one, other than it showing up any sort of kind of red flag in the conversation, which it wouldn't reply to anyways, or it shouldn't. Um, no one, privacy is paramount, and unless there is something that is like violating our TOS or anything else, you know, what happens in Second Life is your, world, and so we don't want to get in on that unless there is something that's blatantly violating the TOS. But again, the bots wouldn't be replying to those anyways.
Yeah. And I guess, I mean, this is very early application of this technology, so people need to be cautious in approaching it and need to understand and expect that everything isn't settled. And clearly, it is going to, it is going to come out at this at some stage. So the bots aren't kind of part of what we expect as privacy in terms of maybe resident to resident.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you look at these apps that are out there, all the companion apps, like, be sure that they are collecting everything you say, to optimize what they're doing and what their bots are doing. So part of it is for optimizations, right? To prevent hallucinations and make sure they're, behaving the right way. But at the end of the day, like we would not be looking at those unless there was some blatant thing that popped up somewhere saying, hey, this person violated the TOS and this thing happened, or the bot violated the TOS. We cannot have that happen. So I hope you all
Yeah.
understand.
And again, on the ethical issue, Aquarius has a question about people spoofing other people's accounts with the bots. I kind of addressed that already, though, really, in terms of the security.
Yeah, unless, yeah, no, please.
There are a couple now then about, Lucy asked a question, I'm not sure I understand it, which said SL had a companion bot market, but many were, I can't make out the word, because they got into child companion bots and all that entails as far as abuse. So, I mean, I'm presuming that's really right up there at the top of your agenda, is to ensure that there aren't those kinds of abuses, which, effectively you're getting into the area of illegality. So that's going to be top of your agenda, making sure those sorts of things can't happen.
Yeah, and I'm actually happy to say that, this was some of the first stuff we talked about during this project, going through our TOS and saying,
Yeah.
hey, this is the stuff that like no one should ever do, and let's make sure the bots are not doing that. So that's not possible.
Abe says, thank you for answering my question. So that's nice feedback. Phil, again, wondering what the scope of companion entails in SL, considering the range of behavior in certain backwaters. So that's the same issue again about boom, looking down. How Hippolytus says, how about cats that are non-verbal, affectionate pets via companion AI?
Oh, interesting. Can you repeat the first one, John?
The one about the wondering what the scope of companion entails in Second Life, considering the range of behavior in certain backwaters.
Yes, that one first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see. So phase one was kind of our foundational. Let's test this out. Let's make sure actions are working. Let's see the bots can make sure that they're doing what we need them to do. This next phase that we're looking into, which, again, we're looking into it. The bot program is kind of at a spot where we're looking at all the data, we're making sure everything's working right. And then from there, the phase two of this, which I'm really calling phase X because it's an ongoing thing where, that's where companion bots would be, but there's still a lot of work to do. So in terms of the roadmap, the biggest part for me personally is number one, long-term memory. This bot that you're seeing here does not have long-term memory, and that is kind of top of mind. And then the other one is really the region awareness stuff. So the bot has a region awareness within 10 meters, but out of that, there's so many objects in Second Life, and there's so many things that can happen, especially, like looking at, actually, I'm going to just pull up a thing for this region here. So this region right now has like roughly 6,500 objects in it. And so getting the bot to understand what is important and what it should ignore, like for instance, a beginning path to pavilion, right? That's an object that's in here. Does the bot need to know about that? No, I know that as a human. And so when you're looking at a multi-agent architecture, one of the agents would be looking at these objects and saying, okay, what's actually important? And then the other one would say, oh yeah, I could sit on this one. I could do this with this one. So for me, the top two are the like more advanced region awareness and then also long-term memory to make sure the bot remembers you. All the bots on the Darcy's Clubhouse, again, they do not have long-term memory. And in the backstories, we put in that, they have amnesia. So FYI. Going to the second part of the question about, um, you know, different kind of companions that are, more animation based, I guess. Is that what the question was?
Well, it's a suggestion that as well as I suppose human inverted commas companions, you could use the AI to have non-verbal, affectionate pet companions.
Yes. And so if you have, what is that nonverbal, companion do, right? Like, so I have a dog, and my dog would, when I come home, comes up and greets me. It'll try to come play with me, after so much time. So this stuff can all be put into the bots pretty much as they are now. Using animations is something that is not part of its current infrastructure. So that would need to be added. But yeah, like, hey, when a user does this, it's not so much like deterministic. Like when I come here, you do this. What you would say is, from the bot perspective, you would give it a backstory of like, you are a cat, okay? Like you do not talk, right? So all that stuff you put into the backstory of your companion, that's a nonverbal one, and then it would have that region awareness to say, I'm actually gonna take this guy offline. Give me a second here. All right. What you would do is you would say, hey, it would understand that it would have different animations that it could use, and then it would try to you know effectively get to the goal of being a good like you are a cat, you need to love your owner and do all this stuff. And then so from there it would understand the objects that are in the region, that it can, maybe you have a cat house or something, and then also it would know like, hey, as a cat, I want to be around my owner. So these bots here, within that region awareness, they know which avatars are around them. And so the target avatar of how it's actually like the one it wants to focus on, that could be added and saying, hey, so that's all kind of possible now, aside from the animation part, which would be done, through the probabilistic nature of the LLM, interacting with Second Life. So yeah, I hope that answers the question. It's kind of a lot.
Bryn O suggests we should all get down on our knees and hail our bot overlords. And Midori has posted a very clever answer to that, I think. She says, she's sure to thank every bot she meets and remind them to remember her fondly when they reach singularity. That's a smart move, Midori, indeed. Let me see. Another comment on companion animals. That seems to be getting attention, all right. Oh yeah, someone else does throw in the comment that they are still word guessing, and that's the reference to large language models, I guess, that are effectively just they're prediction models effectively at this stage.
Exactly.
And yeah, Giles suggests we still have no idea what self-aware really entails, and definitely not the condition of possibility for self-awareness yet. So far down the line that in a way it's not relevant in this current context, or it's not.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, again, it's all machine learning. So at some point, we're really trying to create a bot that is pretty damn close to what you would expect, a person to do in Second Life, or at least have the functionality to do so. But again, we don't want to replace people. We don't want to. We want it to be more of a social lubricant and to help people, get started in Second Life. That's kind of the primary goal at this stage.
There's a lot of chat about the color coding, so that seems to be attracting quite a good response. There are suggestions about how it might be achieved, but I'm going to leave that out. That's not really for today. Shiloh's a good suggestion. Pity text cannot be italicized or something in SL. Of course it can if you whisper. A query says, I think if you give users too much power over these AI bots, then it will definitely be exploited. And I think that's a concern you've been talking about, isn't it, Darcy, really?
Yeah, it's a fine line between, okay, so like from myself as, a owner of a bot, what I would expect it to do is, let's say I own a region and I have a club there, maybe I have a store, I'm doing all sorts of cool stuff. And, I'd want that bot to be able to manage my store, to be able to answer questions about products, to be able to help with redeliveries if needed, send emails out for me, message me while I'm away potentially. And then for the club, hey, if someone is, violating any of the terms that I've set for my club, you need to kick them, you got to boot them. And so it is a really fine line between giving the bot all the capabilities and then, removing some that are kind of necessary, I believe. So yeah, that's a very interesting one.
Bill Youngblood has a very relevant question, referring to Philip K. Dick. He says, do AI bots dream of AI sheep?
Not at this time. I mean, they are talking to each other, but
they're not
yeah,
dreaming.
they're not dreaming. No.
there's a lot of thanks in here for addressing your comments, so that's great that you're hitting the nail. Bruno asked, could you make it so if you ask them if they are a bot, they must say yes? That actually came up earlier, didn't it? You were suggesting that.
It did. And Bruno, love your work. Thank you. Yeah, but then it goes back to the question of, if you own a bot, is that going to break your immersion for what you're expecting, your companion to be like? That is, yeah, that's something we're gonna have to figure out. I think that's the thing too is, Linden Lab, we're not, on this like crazy pedestal doing whatever. We're not trying to do things that are gonna hurt people behind the scenes, right? Like the stuff we think about and the questions that we discuss together as a team, it only goes as so far as, the community here and the wider community in Second Life, really raising their hand and giving and lending their voice to how this could be, because we're only this our virtual world is not Linden Lab. Like this is everyone's virtual world, right? This is not Linden Labs. We are simply the workers to make sure that this is working as expected. So I think it goes back to the community, right? If you feel that, hey, I really need to know if this is a bot and I do not feel comfortable, that is something we need to fully take into account and really think about. And so, please raise your voice on the feedback site. We do look at that a lot.
I see about 15 minutes ago, Simon Linden raised his hand. So,
oh no, Simon.
Simon, I'm sorry. That's how far I've gotten on the list of questions.
Wow,
Did you
yeah,
want to come
I was
in again?
wondering where you were in the scroll back.
Sorry.
No worries. I mean, I think you guys all feel the same way I do right now, which is this is an amazingly deep and wide set of topics. It's not one thing. And as part of the not one thing, there's a lot of distinctions to be drawn with these different questions, and that we're talking about bots, and there's a huge distinction of whether that's actually running as something that looks like a normal user account, or is it a nice pet that's an in-world object that has AI behind it and can do all sorts of creative things. Also, what's going on, there's obviously some questions about how our bots behave and where we might go with that. I think we're excited about this, obviously, and really hope a lot of the work and the experiments and the trials and the innovation happens outside of Linden. We want Second Life to be a place of innovation and growth and experimentation. So we're hoping that happens. Anyway, that's I could babble on about this for a long time as well. So there's just some interesting points I wanted to throw out there. It is a very cool, big topic.
Phil Youngblood also wonders if bots will be allowed to form unions.
Oh gosh.
Here's an idea. Well, following on from that, actually, here's I throw this one at you as well, Darcy, because it's kind of relevant. And to it, Grace asks, what about applying the 3 rules of Asimov's robot rules to bots? I'm not going to read out the rules. People can look them up if they want, but there's an idea.
That's honestly not a bad idea.
Yeah, I like that too.
Yeah,
I think fan.
Got to do a lot of testing around that in terms of where it would be, but that's not a bad idea at all. Thank you so much for the input.
Yeah, thanks to Grace Velvet. It's a really good, I mean, even if they can't be built in as rules, it's a really good ethical structure, isn't it, to base bots on?
Yeah, and that stuff would be, more high level in the system prompt itself. But yeah, we need to do some testing, but I'm curious to see how the bot would respond, given certain commands, if it was trying to what constitutes hurting someone in a virtual environment. That is, wow.
Yes, yeah. Oh, wow, yeah.
Wow.
All
right.
It does get tricky.
Appreciate it.
And there are a lot of comments on that suggestion, actually. Gentle Heron says, yeah, this is why naming objects is important for more than just blind people. She's talking about using the Radagast viewer.
Oh my goodness. I understand what you're talking about. And yeah, that has been very, very difficult because, yeah, when you look at all the region objects, right, from the bot's perspective, what is important and what's not, a lot of the content in Second Life is not named like for an LLM specifically, right? Like descriptions are missing, names are like chair version 4.8. Like what is that? Okay, it's a chair, but like what? So that is something that we're as of right now, it's a manual process of really saying, hey, here are all the objects, and then adding like a custom description to what that is. So that gives the LLM some reference. So today, that bot that was in here, right? I came in a bit earlier, was checking it out, and this seat is at a certain XYZ coordinate, and it's called chair, I think 13S or something, or couch 13S. From there, adding a very good description of like, hey, this is a couch that is in front of a fireside. So giving the bots more context. There is another level above this, and this would be kind of a phase X sort of thing of where, another agent would be going through and looking at these objects either from a data perspective, just like kind of what it's named and see how well it works there. But there's also the other thing of, going to region awareness past the code and actually looking at giving the bots a way to identify objects within the virtual world. So it could be called a couch, but then maybe it's not even a maybe, there's a way where you could, res this couch up for the bot only. And then it would say, oh, like actually know that this is a couch. And then it would be able to generate its own description from there. And so, yeah, some sort of like region object description generator is kind of like the next level of all this. But yeah, as of right now, it's a little bit manual on the description side, I would say.
There's a question about the load in regions, I suppose, and running AI tech in a region, and whether or not that would add to lag.
I can
I
deal
mean,
with
as
that one.
much as, yeah, please, Simon. Yeah.
It's basically the same as whatever the cost of that avatar is that you're looking at. The AI tech and the LLM and all that stuff is running outside of the region servers.
Right.
Minimal effect.
Yeah, here's an interesting question from Shiloh. If a bot creates in SL, who owns the intellectual property rights of that creation?
Oh gosh.
As if it wasn't complicated enough.
Yeah, I go back to that Jurassic Park quote, where he's like, you guys were just thinking if you could, like whether or not you could do something, you didn't stop to think if you should do something. And so we're kind of at that point where a lot of these questions are coming out, right, from the community and also internally, where I think if you look at our TOS, that has an explanation of actually, well, it kind of does, but yeah, we do need to do some updates before and if we do give these to the general public of what constitutes that. And so thank you for that question. That's a really good one.
Yeah, it's one that you'll have to work on, I say. There aren't going to be easy answers to that. Grace references it as well. She says a bot can't own property rights. But yeah, that's always been an issue in a virtual world since the very beginning. Let me see, we're coming up to the top of the hour, but we've time for a couple of more questions. It's still about IP rights, virtual courts. Oh, it gets better, doesn't it? Warning, watch iRobot first.
It's a great movie.
Oh yeah, so somebody says that as AI makes mistakes and hallucinations, the AI bot might borrow from some other creator. So, and that's the other issue, isn't it? Not about the bots creating something that has IP, but the bots stealing someone else's IP.
That is very interesting. I mean, what constitutes IP in this case?
Well, I was thinking of textures, builds, ideas. You know, there's been a lot of cases that have been brought before Linden Lab, but it would be very hard to restrict a bot and then to copyright it or say it's your creation when a bot creates it, because the bot might borrow from many people and say, oops, I was hallucinating. How did I know? I didn't know any different, you know?
Yeah, so in turn, okay, so like textures, right? Like copying those over. I mean, if the permissions on the objects and the textures and whatever are set properly, then I mean, I know there are some issues, right, with that, like with hackers going in and doing X, Y, or Z, but you know, if those are set properly, the bot wouldn't be copying those, I guess. But that's another thing too, is that kind of level of bot functionality is not really on the plate for this current phase, and probably not for a while, to be honest. Other than using items from his inventory, going through and copying things and moving stuff. Well, not moving stuff, but copying things. That's kind of that's a bit farther out. But yeah, I see what you're saying. That's interesting.
I still have a concern though that when you say an outside server serves the AI bot and it's not creating any extra drain on the sim or the energy resources. They found out that using AI on the electric grid is a very high demand. So how could you foresee it, you know, like if you have 100 or 1,000 players working with bots, that wouldn't stress out the server?
You know, as Simon said, it's really whatever impact that avatar is going to have on there. When you go deeper to the code level of how these bots are rolling, it's it's a lot of text, and it's a lot of it's really not that intense to run the bot itself, and it's not too intense to have it talk with you, because you know the energy requirements that come out of LLMs are a lot from the training. But when you have those done and you have those set up in like some sort of cloud somewhere and you're querying it, the cost of that goes down quite dramatically, and the cost of you know LLMs and AI in general is going down over time, right? With in line with Moore's law. So it's once it's out there and done, it's not that resource intensive from my perspective.
Okay, this is clearly a fascinating topic and generating huge interest. The questions and the comments are still pouring in, but I'm afraid we have reached the top of the hour. So that means we're kind of at the end of the formal part of the event. So I would like to thank Darcy very much indeed for joining us this evening and for engaging in really a fascinating conversation. Also, thank you to Simon for coming along, and to Midori. The insights have been fascinating, and your generosity in sharing is really appreciated. So please join me in applauding our guest speaker today. Some of you may well be able to stay on for more informal chat, and I invite you to join us on the deck just behind the audience now for that. And before we do that, may I invite you back here again in 2 weeks on May the 10th for Heike Philipp, who will be talking about instructional design in the metaverse. But that's it for the formal event this evening. Thank you all very much indeed.
Thank you for having us.